The morning the police showed up was actually the second time Evelyn Hargrove had tried to ruin my day that week. The first time was 4 days earlier. I'd come home from Menards with a trunk full of cedar mulch and found a new orange sticker on my door. This one wasn't even pretending to be about rules anymore. It simply read, in Evelyn's perfect Palmer method handwriting, decorative rabbit must be removed by 5 p.m. tomorrow or face daily escalating fines and possible forced removal by approved contractor at owner's expense. She'd attached a Polaroid of Laura's concrete bunny sitting innocently by the mailbox, the one with the chipped ear from the time our golden retriever used it as a chew toy in 1997. Someone, Evelyn, obviously, had drawn a red circle around it and written unapproved in block letters like it was evidence in a murder trial. I stood in the driveway holding that photo for a long time. The sun was setting behind the identical rooftops, turning everything the color of dried blood. I thought about Laura laughing in an Amish gift shop 28 years ago, handing me that silly bunny and saying, "Every yard needs a little whimsy, Grant." I thought about how she never got to see 52. I thought about how the last thing she ever said to me, 3 days before the morphine took over for good, was, "Don't let the world make you hard, okay?" I went inside, poured 2 fingers of Maker's Mark, and called Margaret O'Donnell. "Tell me you're ready," I said. "I've got 3 more closings next week," she answered. "You'll be at 55% by Wednesday. After that she can scream all she wants. The bylaws are the bylaws." "Good," I said, because I'm done asking nicely. The police visit was just Evelyn's encore. She must have been watching from behind her plantation shutters when the U-Haul backed in. I'd rented it as cover. If she thought I was moving out, she'd relax. The deputies spread across my lawn like it was a drug bust. One of them, a woman with a blonde ponytail pulled through her ball cap, actually looked embarrassed when I explained I was loading my late wife's china, not cooking meth. Evelyn stood on her porch the entire time, arms folded under her surgically enhanced assets, nodding along as the sergeant tried to explain to her, again, that moving out of your own house wasn't a criminal offense. When they left, she called after them, "Well, maybe check his garage for unapproved storage." The sergeant didn't even turn around. I finished loading the truck, locked the empty house, and drove away without looking back. Let her think she'd won. Let her sip her Chardonnay and toast to another peasant driven out of her kingdom. She had no idea the moving truck was going exactly 2 miles away, to a storage unit I'd already filled with boxes from the 8 houses I now owned. The real moving day was coming for her. People always asked me when I knew I'd actually do it, when the grief turned into something I could aim like a weapon. It was the night Dad's trailer got towed. He'd paid the $600 fine, moved the trailer to a storage lot off 116th Street, and come back to the house shaking with rage. 78 years old, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, and some woman in a Lexus had made him feel small. We sat on the back deck, drinking beer, while fireflies blinked on and off like they hadn't gotten the memo that joy wasn't allowed here anymore. He told me about a village in 1968 where his platoon got pinned down for 3 days. How they ran out of water and had to drink from rice paddies. How he carried a 19-year-old kid named Tommy Alvarez 2 miles with a sucking chest wound only to watch him die anyway. "I thought that was the worst thing I'd ever feel," he said quietly. "Turns out watching my own son get kicked around by a tyrant in yoga pants is worse." I didn't sleep that night. At 3:17 a.m., I opened my laptop and started building the spreadsheet that would become the battle plan. Every property address, every owner name, every mortgage balance, every divorce filing, every estate sale. 24 rows, hundreds of columns. By sunrise it looked like the Manhattan Project for suburban revenge. I titled the file Operation Bunny Freedom. Margaret laughed when I showed it to her. Then she stopped laughing and started making phone calls. The first purchase was almost too easy. A duplex on Pinehurst owned by a doctor in Tucson who'd inherited it from his mother and hadn't seen Indiana in 15 years. He wanted out from under the tax bill and Evelyn's quarterly landscape assessments. I offered $20,000 over asking, cash, 14-day close. He accepted before his coffee got cold. The second was harder. A foreclosure on Oak Ridge where the bank had been trying to unload it for 18 months. The previous owner had committed suicide in the garage after Evelyn placed a fraudulent lien that blocked his refinance. His widow just wanted the house gone. I paid full asking price and threw in an extra $10,000 so she could bury him properly. She cried on the phone. I told her to keep the curtains. They were staying with the house. Each closing felt like loading a round into the chamber. Evelyn felt the ground shifting, but couldn't see where the tremors were coming from. She started driving the streets at night in her Escalade, like a great white shark looking for blood in the water. She'd slow down in front of houses with new for sale signs, taking photos with her iPad like a deranged real estate paparazzo. She scheduled emergency meetings in her living room, plastic still on the furniture, same portrait of her in a tiara from some charity ball in 2007. Only 6 people showed up anymore. Everyone else had stopped coming because they knew the fix was in. At one of those meetings, she actually proposed selling the playground equipment and the gazebo to raise money for a lawsuit against hostile outside investors. The motion passed 3-2 because only 5 people were there, and 2 of them were her husband Ed and her best friend Rhonda, who still believed Evelyn walked on water. Marcus, my paralegal tenant, who'd become my eyes inside every meeting, texted me the play-by-play from under the table. When Evelyn announced the gazebo sale, Mrs. Delaney apparently whispered, "That's where my husband proposed to me in 1978, loud enough for everyone to hear." Evelyn responded, "Then perhaps you should have kept up with your dues, Gladys." Marcus said you could have heard a pin drop on the plastic-covered couch. That was the night the secret Facebook group went from 20 members to 60 in 6 hours. We called it Willow Creek Truth. Invite only. Profile pictures turned off. Marcus moderated it like a bunker. People started posting photos of their violation notices side by side with their canceled checks proving they'd paid. Someone uploaded a video of Evelyn measuring Mrs. Delaney's grass with a quilting ruler. Someone else posted a screenshot of Evelyn's old real estate license that had been suspended in 2009 for failing to disclose a cracked foundation. The comments were equal parts rage and relief. For the first time in years, people realized they weren't crazy. They weren't alone. We were building an army one broken birdbath at a time. The final piece fell into place the week before Election Day. The Tanners, both elementary school teachers, 2 little kids, drowning in student loans, had been actively looking at houses in Carmel where there was no HOA. Evelyn had fined them $600 the previous spring because their 5-year-old drew a rainbow with sidewalk chalk on the driveway, and it created a visual blight. The chalk washed away in the next rain, but the fine stayed. I caught Jeff Tanner at the mailbox one Saturday morning. He looked 10 years older than his 34 years. I heard you're looking in Carmel, I said quietly. He nodded, exhausted. We can't do another year of this. She threatened to lean us over washable chalk. Grant, what if I bought your house? I asked. $15,000 over appraisal. Cash. I'll even cover your closing costs on the new place. He stared at me like I'd suggested he rob a bank. Why the hell would you overpay that much? I pulled out my phone, opened the spreadsheet, and turned it so he could see. 13 properties highlighted in blue. His address blinking, waiting. His eyes went wide. You're the investor. You're the one she's been screaming about. I'm the one who's going to end her, I said. But I need your house to do it. 55% is the kill shot. And I want you in the front row when it happens. He looked across the yard where his wife, Emily, was pushing their daughter on the swing set Evelyn had once threatened to fine them for because the chain squeaked. We want to watch, he said finally. We want to see her face. Deal, I said, and we shook on it like men sealing a blood oath. 3 weeks later the sale closed. I own 13 lots. Absolute majority. The election notice went out the same day Claire's article hit the stands. Front page, above the fold. Willow Creek HOA president accused of stealing $34,000 through fraudulent fines and kickbacks. Neighbors speak out. Claire had done God's work. 8 interviews. Bank records. The kickback emails. A sidebar titled, How to Audit Your Own HOA. A Homeowner's Guide. My phone started blowing up at 5:47 a.m. With neighbors I'd never met texting, is this real? By noon, every TV station in Indianapolis had a van parked on the corner. By 4 o'clock, Evelyn tried to cancel the meeting. Margaret responded with a cease and desist of her own that basically dared Evelyn to try it in front of cameras. 7 p.m. On election night, the community center looked like a rock concert. Standing room only. 3 local TV crews. Claire lived tweeting from the back row. Someone had brought cookies. Someone else brought a bottle of bourbon and paper cups for after. Evelyn walked in at 6:58 flanked by a criminal defense attorney who clearly billed by the hour. She was wearing a Navy St. John's suit and the expression of someone who still believed money and intimidation could fix anything. I waited until she called the meeting to order, banging a gavel she'd bought on Amazon for the occasion. She tried to push through the $25,000 PR contract first. Margaret stood up. Point of order, Madam President. Bylaws Section 4.8. Elections must be the first item of business when scheduled. Any other motion is out of order. Evelyn's face went the color of canned beets. Walt stood next. I move we proceed directly to elections. Seconded by 12 hands before Evelyn could open her mouth. She knew. You could see it hit her like a freight train. I walked to the front, plugged in my laptop, and turned to the room. Evening, neighbors. My name is Grant Whitaker. Some of you know me as the widower with the concrete bunny. Most of you don't know that as of 4 days ago, I own 13 houses in Willow Creek Estates. The map lit up the screen. 13 blue lots. A noose around her perfect kingdom. 55%. The room went so quiet I could hear Evelyn's acrylic nails clicking against the table. Then I started clicking. Bank transfers to Hargrove Consulting, LLC. $34,000 over 3 years. Inflated invoices from her brother-in-law's company with handwritten kickback notes. The fraudulent lien on Tommy Patterson's house that blocked his refinance and helped push him to take his own life. Every slide another body blow. When I got to the slide showing Evelyn had planned to foreclose on Mrs. Delaney in 14 days if she didn't pay $1,100 in bird feeder fines, Mrs. Delaney stood up, all 82 years and 4'11" of her, and said in a voice clear as church bells, "You were going to take my home because I feed the Cardinals. Shame on you, Evelyn Hargrove. Shame on you." Evelyn tried to scream defamation, but her voice cracked like cheap plastic. The vote was ceremonial at that point. 18 yes, 2 no, for abstentions from people too stunned to move. I was elected president by acclamation. My first official act. Evelyn Hargrove is hereby removed from all positions and access to HOA accounts, effective immediately. Second act. Every fine issued in the last 3 years is declared void pending independent review. Third act. Full forensic audit begins tomorrow. All records are now under subpoena. Evelyn stood up so fast her chair fell over backward. This is a witch hunt. I made this neighborhood valuable. Mrs. Delaney again, sweet as pie. You made it a prison, dear. Tonight we're going home. The applause was deafening. Evelyn tried to leave. The room didn't stop her, but nobody moved out of her way either. She had to weave through people she'd terrorized for years while TV cameras followed every step. Someone started slow clapping. Then the whole room joined in. Not cheers. Just the slow, steady clap of 200 people who finally got to watch the bully walk the gauntlet. She made it to her Escalade, fumbled the keys twice, and peeled out so fast she left rubber on the parking lot. The video of her frantic exit hit 2 million views in 48 hours. Inside the community center, nobody wanted to leave. Someone ordered pizza. Someone else broke out the bourbon. Kids ran wild in the parking lot like they'd been let out of school forever. Mrs. Delaney sat on a folding chair eating pepperoni and crying happy tears while neighbors she hadn't spoken to in years hugged her and apologized for not standing up sooner. I stepped outside around 10, found Dad leaning against my truck drinking a beer. Laura would have loved this, he said. Yeah, I said, throat tight. She really would. 2 weeks later we dissolved the HOA completely. 87% vote. Common areas became city parks. Every stolen dollar came back as restitution checks. I covered the shortfall out of pocket because some things are worth more than money. Evelyn took the plea rather than face a jury of people she'd spent years treating like peasants. 20 months in prison. Full restitution. Lifetime ban from HOA service. They really did pass the Evelyn Amendment because of us. The neighborhood bloomed like it had been holding its breath for a decade. Vegetable gardens. Wildflowers. One guy built a koi pond. Another installed a little free library shaped like the TARDIS. Christmas lights stayed up year-round at the Tanner house just because they could. Mrs. Delaney's bird feeder collection now numbers 14 and counting. I kept 7 houses as affordable rentals, veterans, single moms, teachers, people who needed a break. Sold 4 back to families at cost. Used the restitution money to seed the Laura Whitaker Second Chance Scholarship. First recipient was the Tanner's daughter, heading to Purdue to become a teacher like her parents. Every July we throw Liberation Day. Last year we had 98 people, 3 food trucks, a bounce house, and Mrs. Delaney's peach pie that nobody even pretends to compete with anymore. Dad moved into the duplex full-time. He and Walt fish every Thursday and argue about everything from bait to politics to whether the Colts will ever be good again. I planted black-eyed Susans and coneflowers around Laura's bunny and put a bench beside it. The plaque reads, sit, rest, grow, in memory of Laura Whitaker, who believed whimsy belongs in every yard. On quiet evenings I'll come home and find neighbors I barely know sitting there watching kids play in the street like it's 1985 again. Sometimes perfect strangers stop and read the plaque and smile. That's exactly what she would have wanted. So now I ask you, down in the comments where it matters. Have you ever been bullied by an HOA, a boss, a neighbor, anyone who thought rules were made to hurt people? Did you fight back? Did you win? Are you still in the fight right now? And the question that keeps me up some nights. When you see injustice dressed up in a smile and a clipboard and a flamingo pink tracksuit, do you look away or do you start making a spreadsheet? Tell me your story. I read every single one. Some of you might be the next person who decides the bunny stays and the tyrant goes. Because this isn't just about one cul-de-sac in Indiana. This is about what happens when regular people remember they still get to choose what kind of world they live in. See you in the comments. And keep the concrete bunnies. They're worth fighting for.